Hey guys, what's growing? It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. Gosh, it's chilly out here. Today, we're going to talk about winter citrus care. So I'm in Zone 9B in Northern California, and so I can actually grow citrus outside all year. We do get lots of freezing temperatures, below freezing. Already this winter, we've had multiple nights in the upper 20s. So, you know, I do still have to take care with my citrus, but I don't bring them inside. They stay outside all year. Now, there are some pluses and minuses to that. So in the wintertime, citrus really doesn't want to be drenched and sitting in water. And of course, in California, that's when we get our rain. So my citrus are in pots because we have really clay soil, and they need more sandy soil to thrive because they want well-draining soil. So they do want moisture, but they don't want to sit in water. So I grow mine in pots, and because of that, there are some downsides. So one good thing is it controls their size. They're not going to get super huge in a pot like they do in the ground, but nutrients leach from the soils in the pots much faster than they do when they're planted in the ground. So what I need to do is fertilize, add a lot of compost, and keep an eye on their leaf color. So we've talked about before, chlorosis in the leaves, which is a yellowing of the leaves, can be a nitrogen deficiency, but more often than not. So if you see, pure yellow leaves, all the way yellow, is usually chlorotic that means a nitrogen deficiency. However, if you have leaves that still have green veining in them, that's generally an iron issue. Now, it can also be related to nitrogen, because if there's not enough iron in the soil, your plant won't be able to take up the nitrogen that is in the soil. So it's kind of a double-pronged problem, but there's a fairly easy fix. What I tend to do is treat my citrus with chelated iron, a liquid chelated iron, a couple times a year, and basically I wait for the plant to tell me. When the leaves start looking kind of yellowish, then it's time to give it an iron treatment. But it's been a while since I fertilized, so today I'm gonna give them a citrus food. Now this one just happens to be from a brand that we carry locally, but there's lots of really good brands out there, so you don't have to get this specific one. This one has iron in it, so it is really good for citrus because it adds that iron into the soil. So I will only have to use this today. I won't have to treat with chelated iron as well. And then I'm gonna top up these pots with a small layer of compost. The pots are pretty close to the top, so I can't add too much compost, but they are going to need some. Now, what do I have here? I only have 3 citrus trees. Let's go over those. So I have this guy right here, which is an improved Meyer lemon. This blue tag I actually need to cut off. In California, we are trying very hard to keep the Asian citrus psyllid out of California because it will decimate crops. And so if they have a blue tag on them and you've bought them in California, you know that it is free from the citrus psyllid. So that's my first Meyer lemon. Over here is the next one. This one is about 3 years old. It's bigger, as you can see, and it does have some thorns on it. So it's funny because a lot of people think that that lemons don't have thorns, only limes do, but lemons can as well. This is a lime. This is a key lime, and both this guy and this guy are new. I bought them last year, put them in these big pots, and so the soil is not that old. This one, you can see the soil level has dropped quite a bit. Now I'm going to add compost to it, but I have to be very careful not to pack up compost around the collar of the tree here, or it will suffocate the tree. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is cut open this bag. Now, I'm pretty terrible about following the instructions on the application rates for these kinds of things. So I'm actually going to, it says here, 4 pounds per 100 square feet. Yeah, so I'm not going to give it that much. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit around here, especially because in these 2 new pots, they have relatively, oh, and there's some weeds here I need to pull. They have relatively fresh soil, potting soil. Okay. All right, sprinkle some around here. And I'm going to cut off the citrusillid tag, mostly so that the tag doesn't impede the growth of the stem. Okay. Oh, this one's going to peel right off. That's good. Now I'm also going to take the stake off of this lime tree. It doesn't need it anymore. And the longer you leave a tree staked, the more dependent it becomes on that stake for stability, and the less strong the trunk will be. So I have to gently pull this stake out. And it's a perfectly good stake. I'm gonna use it again. Now we have fertilized and given these plants some compost. That will set them up for a really productive year. So there is some fruit on some of these. There's a little bit of fruit here, 1 lemon. What you want to make sure of is that sometimes what happens is you'll get a whole bunch of fruit and you'll pick some of it, but then you'll leave the rest thinking that it will take its time to ripen. If you leave the fruit on for too long, it will tell the plant to stop producing fruit. So you want to take those, if they've been on there for a couple of weeks, go ahead and pull them off. And I'm looking to see if I have any new blossoms coming out. I don't see any right now. Hopefully in the next month I'll start getting some blossoms. And then if you have any fruit that's been damaged by frost, so at the end of winter, as you were getting ready to go into the spring, look and take off any fruit that has been damaged. Now, to prevent damage from frost, keep these guys in their correct zone or bring them indoors if you're in a lower zone. So for Meyer lemons, their zone is 8 through 11, so a pretty wide zone, but they really don't like it to have frost on them. Key limes, they're zone 9 to 11, so they need really to be protected in the wintertime. So I do have a little bit of frost damage here, but I also have some fresh green leaves. So best way to protect them from frost, if you know you're getting a frost tonight, cover them with frost cloth. But if you're going to use plastic, which some people use, don't let that plastic touch the leaves. So rig up a system with stakes and stuff to keep the plastic off the leaves, because that can actually cause frost damage to the leaves if they come into contact with that plastic. When you fertilize these guys, you're going to do it about roughly 3 times a year if you're using a slow release fertilizer like we did here, granular one. So you're going to want to do it in like the January, February time frame, and then again in like the April and May, and then again in like the June, July time frame. If you're using a liquid fertilizer, then you're going to do that once a week. Now I actually use both, but I use the slow release fertilizer granular roughly twice a year. And then on a roughly weekly basis, I do a foliar feed of compost tea or liquid fish emulsion and kelp. And so that's a very, very mild fertilizer, and I give it to the entire landscape. Everything that I'm growing gets that once a week during the season. So, but it does have a granular fertilizer to slowly break down and feed the soil and the plant over time that's already in the pot. So that's pretty much it for citrus care. If you have them in your yard, in the ground, they probably will grow a lot bigger. Like I said, I have clay soil here, so I really can't do that well. The most pruning you're going to need to do is to trim off anything that's been diseased, damaged, or has died, but they're generally not pruned for shape. You can train citrus into an espalier, so flat. You can cordon citrus. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So it doesn't just have to be in its bushy shrub form. But there are so many varieties of citrus out there. I'm actually hoping to get a kumquat this year to put in a pot because I don't have a place in the landscape to put it that it will work. And maybe at some point I'll have a whole collection of citrus out here for us to enjoy during the season. So if you are in an appropriate zone, give it a try. You can grow them undercover and indoors in the wintertime. If you bring them indoors in the wintertime, they're going to need a lot of light. And you got to keep them away from heaters, heat elements. Don't let them dry out too much, and they are still going to need a feed. So they need a little bit more care when you bring them inside. So that's about it for winter care for citrus. If you're already growing citrus, let me know in the comments what you're growing and whether it's in a pot, in the ground, and what zone you're in. I would love to hear all about it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.